welcome back. The milk alternative section at the grocery store seems to keep growing and growing in size, doesn't it? Whether it's almond, oat, or soy milk, it's tough to know which one to choose when you're looking up at those shelves.
It's so true, but luckily we have just the right person to help us milk the truth on milk alternatives. Please join us in welcoming dietitian and nutritionist Michelle Jaelin.
Welcome, Michelle. This is going to be exciting. So with so many options out there, what are some of the things that we should look out for immediately when we're trying to choose a milk alternative?
Yes, so people have a lot of reasons why they might choose a plant-based milk. It could be because they're lactose intolerant, it could be due to allergies or sustainability. There are certain things you want to look for though, and I always look at the nutrition label, and I look at protein, calories, calcium, and vitamin D.
Protein, calcium, and vitamin D.
Correct. So we're going to dive into those in a more detailed way. We're going to start over here with we're going to go through these common milk alternatives. Let's start with almond milk. How does it score on those three things you just mentioned?
Okay, so for almond milk, I got protein, I said low.
Okay, so low protein.
Calcium and vitamin D, I put medium, and that's because some brands are fortified and some are not. So you want to check the label, and every single milk out there has a nutrition label on there for you to check.
Okay, so fortified better.
What does the fortified actually mean? I see it everywhere.
Yes, so fortification means what they do is they add the nutrients back into the plant-based milk so that you get it in when you eat it yourself. So it's actually a good thing. You always want to make sure that you are choosing one that is fortified.
Okay.
And the way you know that too is you want to aim for certain metrics. So you want to aim for 9 grams of protein, aim for it, 30% calcium and 30% vitamin D.
Okay, that's really good.
That's a really handy thing to look
excellent.
for. So we can go above that, but we don't want to really go below that ideally.
Yes, exactly.
Let's move on to oat milk. And I'm embarrassed to say I still haven't tried this stuff. Here it is. How does it rate sort of compared to almond milk?
So oat milk, I put it a medium across the board for protein, vitamin D, and calcium. And the reason being is that it is better in terms of protein compared to almond milk, because almond milk tends to be low. So it's better in that regard. But doesn't mean it has a lot of protein. It has about 4 grams per serving. The reason why oat milk has a better score is also because it has more B vitamins coming from the oats, which is good if you're a vegetarian or vegan. You get more B vitamins from your milk right there.
Okay. It's good. It's tasty.
Is it oaty?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I like it.
So in 2017, the Canadian Pediatric Society of Dietitians did publish a warning about milk alternatives, which confused me because when my doctor, when my son was young, I asked about milk alternatives, and they said they were absolutely fine, keeping in mind that my son was eating a diverse diet. So set the record straight. Like, are they okay, or only in some instances are they okay?
So the best milk that's recommended right now, especially for kids between the ages of 2 to 8%, still is cow's milk because it's the most nutritionally adequate in terms of the protein, the vitamin D, and the calcium. However, if you don't want to give them dairy, the best alternative is a regular soy milk. So for babies or toddlers, we would recommend to them a regular full-fat soy milk, and that's because you want the extra fat and the calories because it helps with their growth.
Okay, well, let's move on to soy milk because you say this is the best alternative to milk. So how else does it rate high up on?
So for soy milk, I have high for protein, calcium, and vitamin D.
Okay.
Now, the only thing with soy you might want to be careful of is if you have a thyroid problem or it's something that runs in your family, you might want to check with your family doctor to see if it's okay for you. Again, also, there's a lot of myths and misinformation about soy.
Yes, there is. I feel like people have a lot of...
Like the estrogen stuff.
Yeah. That people think it makes you feel wonky or that it might impact men in a certain way. Like, what is it? Right?
Yeah. Like you're going to grow boobs.
Yeah.
So where people get confused is that the estrogen in soy milk is a plant-based estrogen. It's not the same as the female sex hormone estrogen. And people get the two confused, and they think that they can cause something in your... But it doesn't have an effect on that. The other thing, too, is that men may not want to drink it because they're afraid it's going to make them effeminate. That is not true.
Okay.
That is not true at all.
Glad we
set the record straight.
Good. Okay.
Bottoms up.
Okay, so let's move on to hemp milk, and let's talk about the benefits. I've never tried hemp milk, so I'm going to get
Just looking at it, it looks to be like creamy and beautiful.
Yeah.
So hemp milk is interesting because it does come from the same plant as marijuana, but it will not make you high. There's actually very minuscule amounts of THC in it, so it won't actually do anything to you. In terms of protein,
you like it?
I don't mind it actually.
Sorry.
Yeah,
you don't mind it? Okay, great. Some people find it has a bit of a chalky texture.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yes. But you know, it has healthier fats, so it has omega-3 fats. So if you're someone who doesn't really get them in your diet, then it's a good way to get it there too. Even though it is a complete protein, it has all 9 essential amino acids, it doesn't actually have a lot of protein in it.
Okay. And then what about rice milk? Is this a good alternative?
So rice milk, I put it low across the board. And the reason being is because a lot of brands are not fortified. Again, also low protein. If you want to use it for cooking, then that's great. If you want to use it in baking, that's great as well. But generally, you know, that's pretty much what I use rice milk for. Same with coconut milk.
Okay, you're trying it. I like how you're just this test person.
Oh, it's a little bit sweet, like a touch. It reminds me of mother's milk, if I remember. It does. I want you to try
Mother's milk.
Because you've tried breast milk.
I have drank I've drank my own breast milk before.
This is what I imagine breast milk would taste like.
You're not wrong. You heard it here first.
That for a palate.
Sorry. That's okay. Lastly, we're going to move right along and out of there into something that I feel like not a lot of people are familiar with, which is pea milk. Which those two words don't sound great together, but you found that this is a great option. You mean like little peas. And this is a great pea protein.
It's an interesting visual.
Yeah.
Like
Let's
how
talk
you
about
get the milk from the pea.
Yeah.
But let's not talk about it. Let's talk about this.
It comes from, the milk comes from yellow split peas. That's where it comes from. Now, interesting, it's actually very high in protein. It's got all 9 essential amino acids. And it's actually like pretty good if you're a very active person and you need the protein for recovery. The downside, what I've noticed with a lot of pea milk in Canada is that it's not fortified with vitamin D and calcium. And remember, we're aiming for at least 30%. This doesn't have any.
So you gave it a high score on protein, but low on calcium and vitamin D.
So if it were allowed to be fortified, would it be as good an alternative as soy?
It would be. And here's the interesting thing. In the US, it actually is fortified with calcium and vitamin D. So until it comes into Canada and that's allowed, and then that can be, it'd be very equivalent to soy milk in a way.
The taste is very benign. It's just kind of neutral. It's like, it's fine. Like I feel like they're all slightly different in an interesting way.
They are. Do you have a favorite?
I think I like this one.
Do you really?
What are you picking? I didn't go, I normally do have that.
I have to say, I like the oat.
Well, there you go.
But when you look at nutrition labels, often you see a whole bunch of alternatives sort of stuff. Is that necessarily bad when you see these
alternative,
additives?
So that's interesting. So now you have to keep in mind these plant-based milks were not really meant to be milk. So now we made them into milks and stuff so that manufacturers might have to add certain things like emulsifiers, that kind of thing, to make it more shelf-stable, to make it more palatable for yourself as well. So not necessarily bad. And a lot of times you'll see ingredients that you cannot pronounce on the label. So for example, you might see on a label of soy milk it says palmitate. Palmitate is actually a chemical form of vitamin A. It is actually good for us, and it's good for us to get in our diet because, again, that's the fortification process.
Okay.
Hey, so good thing.
This is
good.
amazing.
Good to know about our labels. Michelle, thank you so much for this little education.
Thank you.
For a rundown of all of the things we talked about today, you can head to our website. We'll be right back.